is 1948. The place is south of Nairobi. It's a time when the British Army and their allies retreat to their colonies after a grueling 6-year battle during World War II. But now the guns have gone silent, and the British troops, lucky to have survived the war, are rewarded by the British Empire to rule over the British East Africa colony. At that time, the mayor of Nairobi is a man named Sir Frederick George Richard Woodley, and his vision is to have a housing estate designed to show dominance, comfort, and fortitude for the returning troops. He selects a 110-acre piece of land in Nairobi to begin construction of a housing estate which he hopes will host the growing number of white settlers within East Africa. Before long, Sir Richard Woodley's vision comes to life with 300 housing units comprising of a few flats and several bungalows completed and ready for occupation.
The Woodley estate was his initiative. He's the one who went and sourced the funds for building the estate. So it was built from 1948 and may have been completed somewhere mid-1950s.
The estate would aptly be named after the man who conceptualized it. And indeed, the neighborhood was the place to be.
Basically, Woodley was built for the, I think, civil servants, the British civil servants, because they are the ones who lived here then. And until maybe after independence, when now the Kenyans started coming and living here.
Among the Kenyans who moved here at the time was Sam Njuguna's father. He remembers growing up in an estate that just years prior was not allowed for Africans.
These are the flats of Woodley Estate. And they are about, there are 3 blocks of flats on Mugo Kabiru Road. And on the other side of the roads now we have the bungalows, all right?
How many houses are in each flat?
They're all different, like these are 8. There are 2 blocks with 8 flats each. And then the third block of flats has about 20, what is it? I think 16 flats.
But something interesting happened during the transition period when Kenya attained independence in 1963. The houses essentially were handed over to the Nairobi City Commission, who were to manage the estate as trustees for the state. It is during that time period when an influx of political leaders scrambled to have a piece of the pie that was Woodley Estate. Grace Conchella's husband was one of them. He was then a Nairobi councillor looking for an estate to raise his family.
It was not even owned by the Nairobi City Council, it was owned by Mayor Woodley. So when he left, there was an mass, the Europeans who used to live there, they also left. So this was a kind of a nice estate there. Okay, I would say it's because of their status also, you know, they were legislators, you know, and the houses were available and Woodley was nice, and I think one of them came there and he called the other and the other called, so you know how it happens, you know, everybody kept on luring the other, this is a nice place. I think that's why they live there.
Before long, Woodley became known as the legislator's estate. The list of tenant political figures was indeed a long one.
They all lived there. Chiongoneko, Lukobok, Waruru Kancha, the Ngeis, the Onekos, you know, so many people. Kinamidika came later, Kinanjuno. So all the Rohio, Lubembe, so many of them lived there.
This is where Achieng Oneko, a freedom fighter, Information Assistant Minister in Kenya's first independence cabinet, and a member of what came to be known as the Kapenguria 6, lived in house number 113. He secured a residency here which still lasts to this day. The house is now occupied by one of Oneko's 11 children. House number 118 in Woodley Estate is also the place where Barack Obama Sr. lived with his American wife, Ruth Baker, whom he married after divorcing Anne Dunham, the former United States President Barack Obama's mother, in 1964. Kenya's first black African lawyer, Agwins Kodhek, also resided in Woodley, as well as then Ukambani political kingpin Mulu Mutisya, trade unionist and pioneer Alego Usonga Member of Parliament Luke Obok, former Langata Member of Parliament and ex-husband to Nobel Peace Prize laureate Wangari Maathai, Mr. Mwangi Maathai, as well as the then members of Parliament for Nyando, Makuyu, Yatta and Nakuru Town, all resided in Woodley Estate. As one of the first city council houses, occupation here has been generational. Sam Juguna Gashago is the estate's Welfare Society chairman and is son to Jesse Mwangi Gashago, who was the then Makuyu legislator.
These are all rental houses.
How much was rent then?
The rent was about, I think, 200 shillings, if I remember correctly. That is how much the rent was, because I think I still have a card that shows the rent was about 200 shillings. Yeah.
How much is the rent now?
The rent now is 16,000. 16,000 shillings. Yes, for a bungalow, and about, I think, 10,000 shillings for a flat.
But even though, as in most city council estates, tenancy in Woodley has been passed down from one generation to the next, that status quo began to fall into jeopardy in the early 1990s.
It started from corrupt city council senior officers. You know, they decided to bring in their friends, their cronies, their families to come and buy the houses, which was really very unfair.
We had to, we stood fast and we said, no, we're not going to let this estate go. And each successive government, we went through Moy's government, we went through the NAC government and so forth, It was at that time in 2002, His Excellency the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, was the Minister of Local Government. And we wrote to him, and he was asked a question by the Honorable Beth Mugo. And he said, no, these houses were sold illegally. And priority should be given to the sitting tenants. Because the tenants themselves have, since 1973, they've always written to the Nairobi City Council and asked the council to actually sell these houses to them, since 1973.
Now imagine this, a house that you've been living in with your family for nearly 40 years, all of a sudden sold off to someone else who knocks at your door demanding that you leave immediately. It's the story of the residents of Woodley Estate who happened to be victims of a grand scheme apparently orchestrated at the corridors of City Hall that I'll be telling you after the break.